condensed list of Joe Biden's accomplishments in less than 7 minutes. We have a full video on it, but it's over an hour long, and it will cover slightly less critical but important wins like organ transplant reform or adoption reform. This isn't a pro-democratic video, it's maybe the first ever shamelessly pro-Biden one. During the video, ask yourself why the media, DNC, or Biden campaign didn't talk about these significant wins on things we care about, like sexual assault, which we'll start off with. Thanks again for listening. Sexual assaults in the military are a serious problem, with the unit commander in your chain of command being the person where you had to report the sexual assault and had the power and sole discretion of whether or not to pursue charges, leading to a clear conflict of interest as they might have been perpetrating this culture or even, for less sinister reasons, that still bias them. In 2021, 8% of active duty women reporting unwanted sexual contact in just that year. Only 20% formally reporting it out of fear of retaliation, because 62% of individuals who did report sexual assault said they received retaliation from reporting it. Even worse, of the 20% that did report it, the court conviction rate was an abysmal 5%. And to help combat this, Biden moved military sexual assaults outside of the chain of command to an independent office of special trial counsel, helping move the rates of sexual assaults from a 13% year-over-year increase to a 7.5% decrease, turning around a horrifying trend. Furthermore, until 2022, if you were sexually assaulted, even raped at work, you couldn't sue your employer. Almost all employers had forced arbitration clauses forcing you to settle it privately, so no judge, jury, or public record of a civil court. And these private arbitration courts sided with the companies in 98% of the cases. Biden's Ending Forced Arbitration Act prevented these from being enforced and, importantly, was effective retroactively. What most people don't know about non-disclosure agreements is that they can legally prevent you from speaking out on things like your sexual assault or sexual harassment to even your spouse, which I'm sure is great for your mental health. The Speak Out Act prevents companies from enforcing pre-disputed non-disclosure agreements related to sexual misconduct, meaning your employer can't enforce a pre-disputed NDA on sexual harassment in their employment contract that covered 1 in 3 workers. You can still sign an NDA yourself, but after the incident, and it would be up to the victim in their settlement. Next, Biden issued an executive order directing the Health and Human Services to enforce a new HIPAA privacy rule protecting your reproductive health information from law enforcement. The law, preventing subpoenas, court orders, requests from law enforcement, or even oversight investigations from receiving your reproductive health care unless they sign a binding legal attestation saying they are not using their information to investigate or prosecute reproductive health services. Biden knew exactly what this was about: abortion. So if you're in a state where abortion is legal, you travel to another state for the procedure, they can't get the records as it was illegal in the state that the operation happened. And if you get an abortion in a state where it is illegal, they have to have direct evidence of it happening in order to get the records, severely hampering their investigation. But this executive order helped protect both patients and healthcare providers. And I also realize what this means by it being an executive order. Moving on to gun laws. Like the first in 30 years. He implemented the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. It closed the private dealer loopholes where you could sell a gun without a federal license and designated much stricter laws of who qualifies as a dealer, which ensures these dealers run a background check before selling firearms. It also introduced enhanced background checks for the high-risk 18 to 20-year-old individuals, which requires a 3-day wait time before the background check is complete. And it implemented the first ever federal laws for gun trafficking and straw purchasing. Shocking, these were not federal laws before, and they would have to prosecute on things like making a false statement on a federal document, which resulted in relatively light penalties, and why these federal laws needed to be made. Utilizing a 2018 Farm Bill, he led the highest ever SNAP increase, with a 21% increase in SNAP benefits. Capping insulin at $35 a month for Medicare and giving Medicare the ability to negotiate drug prices after they've been on the market for 7 years, which resulted in about $100 billion in savings. This was the first time in 2 decades since George W. Bush's Prescription Drug Improvement and Modernization Act that we were actually able to negotiate drug prices. The Infrastructure and Jobs Act, an infrastructure bill that neither Obama nor Trump was able to pass, was a $1.25 trillion investment in America to fix our crumbling infrastructure, and every dollar invested resulted in a positive return on the U.S. economy. Biden was also responsible for the largest decrease in overdose deaths in history. He signed the MAT Act into law to ease access to addiction treatment, make Narcan available over the counter, and putting it in public spaces, similar to AEDs, to prevent overdoses. This led to a 27% decrease in overdose deaths. These addiction improvements, like his work with sexual assault, are so important to society, yet why was there no media attention covering this? The Respect for Marriage Act, federally recognizing any marriage between two individuals that is valid where it is performed. This eclipsed the Defense of Marriage Act, marriage as seen between a man and woman, and formally appealed it. Even though the Defense of Marriage Act was struck down, Biden did this because Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas hinted that the court should reconsider Obergefell v. Hodges, getting one step in front of Republican cruelty. I'm running out of time, so let's quickly go over some other major wins. The Safe Drinking Water Act to ban PFAS in our drinking water. The CHIPS Act for domestic chip production and national security. I would have preferred tariffs, but okay. The PACT Act to get our veterans tested for toxic substance exposure and improving veteran suicide treatment care. The Inflation Reduction Act to lower healthcare costs, properly tax the rich, and invest in clean energy in U.S. manufacturing. And designated placements, a safer place for LGBTQ foster children as they are prone to maltreatment. I hope it's clear now, it's not what you do, but how you advertise it. For example, Biden got Mexico to pay $1.5 billion towards the wall in exchange for work visas. Biden also focused on targeting serious immigrant criminals in the US, which, funnily enough, since Trump targeted all immigrants, not just the serious criminals, and since detention centers only have so much capacity, Trump filled the detention centers with asylum seekers and let the real criminals go back into the US. Specifically, 576 rapists, 306 murderers, and 8,620 violent criminals. I highly suggest you read this article by CATO. I give up. Biden is completing Republican campaign promises better than Republicans and without any credit. It's not on the Republicans. It's on the Democrats to market real, meaningful accomplishments that get left unsaid.